Hello. I mean, I couldn't start without the finger gun. Um, so I know that I am probably like 20 seconds behind. So I'm gonna take the next like couple of minutes to just say hello and thank Brian for his live just now. It was fantastic. All of them actually have been really great. Um, And I would like to thank Simon, obviously, for the sort of conception of this, and Jen, of course, who has done an amazing job of keeping it all very organized and truly answering every possible question that anyone could possibly have. And I don't know that there is a more organized person on the planet. So there's that. Um, so obviously you have read the title. If you have not, then my live is going to be all about the process of having a deck published, um, self-publishing specifically because I don't have any experience with like a mass market publisher or anything like that. Um, so I figured I would go through a few points of the process. And then I'm going to reserve a little bit of time towards the end to have some questions because, I just don't always think of everything. And inevitably, there are people who I'm sure are here who are hoping to get certain information or, may have questions that they'd like answered. And so I figured, why not have that component? So, I guess I'll start by introducing sort of my deck, which feels kind of weird saying that because it's a modern sort of updated version of a very well loved vintage deck, the Hoi Polloi. Um, and so I didn't really set out to create a deck per se. Or I certainly didn't think I would have a Kickstarter. So the process really started because I wanted to learn Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. Um, and I have since sort of seen other programs um, and software that may be a little more accessible to people that seems to be very user friendly and yeah, just more accessible because ultimately Photoshop, well, all of Adobe suites, sort of has the stigma of being a little pricey because you either have to pay yearly, like you can just pay a lump sum all at once, which is a few $100s, or you can pay a monthly subscription to have the service. Um, I was very fortunate that I didn't have to pay that because my husband works and is in grad school, but he works at a university, and so he already had Adobe Suites on his laptop, and so that's what I used. So it all started with the lover's card of the Hoi Polloi. Melissa Zupan kindly scanned her copy of the deck, and shared the files with me. And then I cropped them and played around with recoloring in Photoshop. And it took a little while for me to figure out how to separate the line work from the colors on the card and everything. Um, and it was a fun process, a challenging process. It took me probably a few weeks to figure it out, and then I finally did figure it out, and surprise, it's way easier than um I originally thought it was, and I have since found even easier ways to do that. So I separated the line work, I recolored the deck in Illustrator, well, Photoshop, um, and then I started on another card, and then I started on another card, and then next thing you know, I had the majors done, and then I started working on the minors, and it was really just like me learning, using this process as a learning tool to figure out like how get adjusted to using Photoshop. Um, that being said, it is not like it isn't necessary to use Photoshop. It isn't necessary to use Illustrator. Lots of people use Procreate, which is an Apple exclusive, I think. There are also like digital drawing pads that you can connect to your laptop or tablet or whatever you're using, that allow you to color with a stylus. So it's almost like you're doing it by hand. Um, I just used the trackpad on my laptop and it worked fine. So that's a little bit of my process of how I did it. Um, and then at that point, I had the whole deck and I thought I would just put it on make playing cards. Um, and then I thought about it and I was like, no, like I put a lot of time into it. I was really proud of the the progress that I made learning Photoshop and learning how to do it. And I was really proud of the color palette specifically. Um, so I don't know how much I've talked about my creative endeavors on my channel really. But I am, or I think of myself as being a very creative person, and I really value color specifically. Um, and I think that color is a very important part of how we experience life and how we experience tarot and the way that we feel when we see things. Um, and so for me, picking out the color palette was very important. And I also wanted to make sure that I didn't just like get off track with the colors. I needed it to be really cohesive. I didn't want you to like pull a spread and be confused with why there was this random shade of purple or something. And so what I did was basically narrowed it down to a handful of colors, 8 to be specific, I think is what I used, including the brown that the titles are, and the background, which is like a sort of creamy white. Um, and then I used that creamy white color that I used for the background to blend in with all 8 of the other colors to make the palette. So each of the 8 colors was broken down into, I think, 4 shades, essentially, going from the main color to that creamy white. And that is how I was able to sort of have a little more freedom and not have it look like every single deck had exactly the same colors in it. But when you pull all the cards together, because all of the colors were made by blending each other, the colors really worked well together. So that's a little trick. If you are, working on any project, really, not just designing this, um, if you pick a primary set of colors and then use those colors to mix with each other, you'll always have colors that are harmonious and go really well together. So aside from that, what I would say is the next important thing, aside from the design and the colors, is making sure everything is cohesive. So once you pick the colors that you're going to use, stick with those colors and use those for everything. You'll notice if you have, if you've been subscribed to my channel, you'll notice that my home YouTube page has changed, and the colors are all the colors of that deck, of, the deck that I did. My Etsy shop is all the same colors, the same sort of design. So that's important too, because you want all of your content, even if you're not a content creator, you want all of the platforms that you're going to be showing your deck or trying to sell your deck, you want it to be recognizable as being yours. And you don't want it to be like, I didn't want there to be question about, is this Brant's deck or is this another deck? Not that there's another deck. You see what I mean. The point is, I wanted, when you see my things, I wanted you to know that it was me. So, yeah, so that's important. So I guess now let's move on to the printer options. So initially I was gonna just put it on Make Playing Cards and make it a print on demand thing, which would be totally fine. I have no issue with it at all. I love Make Playing Cards. Anyone who is familiar with my channel, well, actually, I don't know that I've shown a lot of them on my channel, but I have lots of decks from Make Playing Cards. I love their tins. They have great products. Their card stock is lovely. Very nice, easy to shuffle, wonderful. I love it. That being said, I really wanted to release the deck as a limited sort of run that was really special, and I really wanted to give the deck the sort of like really special feeling that I felt like it kind of got denied originally, because it was originally put out as a children's game and not as like a serious sort of tarot deck as a tool. And so I have always felt like it sort of got shortchanged a little, and it is my first vintage deck. And it also is the deck that I have bought and sold and given away the most out of all the decks that I have. And there's just something charming about it. And I like that it is very much RWS, but without being just like a straight up clone of the RWS. It just isn't. So I wanted to give it a really, let me get back on track. I wanted to give it a really special sort of treatment and have it be as amazing as I felt like it was. So initially, when I launched the Kickstarter, I was gonna use Make Playing Cards still as the printer, but just print them all essentially, and then I would ship them out, and that way it would still be a limited number. And then I launched the Kickstarter with a goal of $5,000. And then after I tell you sort of this part of the story and we go through the printers, I'll sort of talk about the Kickstarter process and how that works too, because that is something that I wish I would have known going in, because it's just not exactly how I expected it to be. Not bad, but just not. I think it will be helpful to know. So I launched the Kickstarter with a goal of $5,000, which was going to cover essentially the cost of printing 250 decks and ship them to wherever they were going. Shipping, unfortunately, abroad, I'm in the United States. Shipping abroad has gone up significantly. There are parts of Europe and parts of the world that are, I think, the most expensive that I've come across is shipping to New Zealand, and it is $30 to ship. And that's under £1. Like, that's a lot of money to ship a deck. And I understand that that can really limit people's ability to contribute and buy the deck. At the same time, though, it was totally out of my control, obviously. And for the most part, I had no complaints about it. People have been very understanding. So there's that, and I do appreciate that. So the $5,000 was going to, back to what I was saying, it was going to cover the cost of printing 250 decks and shipping them, essentially. I don't think there was any sort of like profit built in for me or anything like that. At the time, I wasn't interested in that. Like, I wasn't thinking about it like a business. I was thinking about it like, I've done this. I enjoyed doing it. I want to share it. Here's how I can share it. And so that's what I did. I put it up on Friday, April 1st at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, I believe, is when I launched it. It was 100% funded by the time I went to sleep at a little after 11 o'clock at night. The next morning I woke up and it was like $7,000. Throughout that day, it went up to almost 9. The next day, it went to like 12. Like, that Monday, it was at like 13 when I was on Simon's channel. And then it just kept going and going and going. And then I was like, oh, this is okay. This was unexpected. I knew people would like it because I know people like the hoi polloi, but I was not expecting that sort of, reception of it. So at that point, because I didn't think of it, I didn't think it was going to become anything more than just me printing 250 of them and that's it. So I didn't pre-plan any sort of stretch goals. I didn't pre-plan any sort of like upgrades to the deck or anything like that. So at that point, I added a few stretch goals. The first of which was, what was it? I don't remember, honestly. Oh, 2 extra cards to, so that you can switch out strength and justice to make them whichever position you wanted them to be. And then a tie-dyed spread cloth and a little white book, which was probably the thing that people asked about the most. That was probably the question that I got on Kickstarter the most was, will I have a little white book or something included? So I immediately worked on the little white book, got that ready to go. And then the spread cloths, obviously, I started working on those too. Probably about the time that I hit about $13,000 on Kickstarter, I started getting messages from printing companies, which was unexpected. I assumed I would need to source them. As it turns out, I did not need to source them. They sourced me, which makes sense because that is their business. And why wouldn't you be on a platform like Kickstarter trying to, get decks to print? So as far as printers are concerned, there are a few options, in my opinion, that are great depending on what your need is and depending on what you're looking for in particular. Make Playing Cards is fantastic. They are print on demand. They honestly were going to be the quickest to get from the time I placed the order to the time I received the decks myself. And then there are printers overseas, specifically China, which is who I went with, and I will talk about why after I talk about the third option, which is sort of local independent specialty printers. Um, I was not contacted by any of those. Those I think you probably do need to source because generally they are not card printers. Um, and they can potentially, there are risks involved with doing that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying you should be very informed about the terminology when it comes to cardstock and dimensions and the formatting because the ASL Tarot, American Sign Language deck, I'm still waiting on mine. Very excited about it. His printer was a local printer. Um, the cardstock looks absolutely amazing, but from the videos that I have seen is going to be impossible for me to use. The deck is like, I mean, so thick, so thick. And that is what I am. That's the sort of thing that you have to like be ready to ask questions and see things every step of the way so that you can know exactly what's happening. So now let me talk about the printer that I went with. Um, I'm not going to say the name of them because for whatever reason, I signed an NDA, um, which is, I think, to protect both of us, honestly. It's probably to protect them from, with their pricing and everything. But I will tell you a little bit about the process that I've had with them in particular. Um, so they reached out to me, asked if I had a printer. I responded because they had printed decks that I was familiar with and I liked their quality. So I responded and I asked if they would send me some samples of decks and things that they could do. And I received this, which is like so many. And let me see. I don't want to put their, anyway, I'm not going to like put the little paper that's on the front on the camera because it has like their personal emails and things on it. But essentially, each card was in a little bag and it listed everything that the card had. It like if it was gold foiled, if it had an edging, the thickness, the finish on the cards, like, so I mean it was probably, I'd say this is probably like 45 different combinations of cards. And then they sent boxes, potentially different boxes, all labeled the same way. So I got the kit and then, picked out how I wanted it and everything. They were extremely, extremely helpful. The edging color is literally whatever color you want. They could do literally any color. In matte, they could do it in foil. So many different holographics. I've never even seen holographics like they had. Um, and so that's what I did. I picked a Pantone color and went with that, emailed it to them. I did everything via email, no issues. They were very prompt. They got back to me very quickly. Now they are 16 hours ahead of me, I think. So generally I knew I needed to text or email them around 8 o'clock at night in order to get a response the same day. If not, I just waited 24 hours, which nothing you could do about. So yeah, so then the printer, I had all of the card images formatted in RGB, which is the color formatting for printing. There are, I think, 3 or 4 different ways that you can format it. RGB, which has the least number of like combinations of colors, obviously, because it's just 3. Also, the primary colors are not actually red, yellow, and blue. But that is for another. I'm not going to get into that because it's just going to eat up time and it's not really important for this, for the purpose of this. But if you're interested, do Google it. The true primary colors. So I had to format it for Make Playing Cards, RGB, and they were saved as JPEGs because that's the format that Make Playing Cards uses, and that's who I intended to print with. As it turns out, the printer that I went with needed it to be PDFs and CMYK color format. CMYK is more true to the color on your screen when it's printed. You don't have issues. You don't have as many issues with sort of saturation and things like that. So I went ahead and formatted it and everything, reformatted it to match their bleed area, which is the like area beyond the card, so that you don't have any sort of like white showing or anything around the edges. Reformatted it, did all of the, had it all finished up and everything. Emailed it in a Dropbox essentially. They got it. And yeah, so the timeline is 45 days from when they start printing till I get them. So Kickstarter got the money to me on the 15th of May. I paid the deposit on the deck on the 18th or 19th. We'll go 19th because it was late in the day on the 18th. So I should get them the middle of July, maybe the end of July at the latest, I'm hoping, which puts me on track to be shipping them out in August, which is the projected day. So, okay. So I did have a test one printed at Make Playing Cards with the CMYK just to, double check and make sure that once they were printed, they would be how I expected them to be. And also, I wanted to make sure that the format of the box was how it needed to be, and everything was good and great. And what I noticed was that while the box is great, it's fine. The design, the final box design that you all that have backed or bought the deck will receive, the lid goes all the way to the bottom, and there are thumb cutouts on the sides so that you can easily open and close the box. So that was an important step for me, because ultimately it costs thousands of dollars to have a deck printed, and the colors, like I talked about in the beginning, are so important to me that I needed to make sure that the final deck was going to be exactly like I designed it and that it wasn't gonna be like overly saturated or, you know, different, because the color palette is a lot of the appeal for um people that backed the deck, and I knew that, and I knew it would be. Um, so having a one printed just to check the colors is important, and it honestly doesn't cost that much. It was, I think, $35 maybe, probably right at 50 with shipping. Um, Another thing that I did was I thought about, like, do I need a barcode? Am I gonna like am I gonna sell this beyond this? Like, is it gonna be in shops that will need a barcode? Like, how am I gonna do this? Should I put a website on it? Do I need to get a website? Should I put the Etsy link on it? Like, and so what I ended up deciding on was, at the bottom of the box, it will just say connect. Of course, my face is in it, so you're not going to be able to see. It's blurry. But anyway, I just wrote connect, and then there's a QR code, which is linked to a Linktree account for me. So I can update it at any time. And so if for whatever reason Etsy doesn't work out as the seller that I use, then, you know, if I go with like Big Cartel or something, I can update the Linktree without having the boxes be, you know, obsolete and not necessary anymore. Um, so let's see. Did I go through everything so far? I think I have. I'm trying to move quickly through this so that, or not quickly, I want to be thorough, but I also want to make sure that there's time left so that I can answer any questions that people may have also. So now I guess I will talk about the Kickstarter process. Oh, one more thing with the printer though. So the way the printer works for me, which made me feel much more comfortable than just sending, you know, $10,000 and hoping that everything works out. They will start printing once you pay a deposit, which is a third of it. And then you complete the payment. Um, and then they'll ship it essentially. So I paid the third. I had lots of issues with my bank wiring the money. As it turns out, I couldn't wire the money. They would not allow me to wire the money. Um, and they also didn't give me much explanation for why I couldn't. Um, from what I could gather, they wouldn't let me wire the money because I was wiring it to a business that I hadn't done business with before. But like, that's just an endless cycle of you can't, because I will never be able to have done business with a person before if I can't initially have business with the person. So they basically said I needed to figure out a different way to do it. And so I had to contact the printer and say, hey, is there another way that you can do this? Because, like, I don't know how I'm going to get you the money. And as it turns out, they sent me an invoice through their website, and I was able to use my PayPal to do it, which, like, worked out great. So that's that. They send you proofs of the deck to make sure that everything is formatted right, everything looks good. So I got, like, it essentially looks like a sheet of tarot cards, like you can sometimes buy or see online. Um, and so I looked at every card from the whole deck to make sure it was formatted right and everything looked great. And they did the same thing with the box design. And then once everything was approved, it, as far as I know, it's being printed currently. And then they send you, well, I can only speak for my experience, obviously. So my printer has sent me several updated like videos of them with like a little mock box to like make sure everything, formatted right and looked good. So that's it. Now it's just sort of a waiting game to figure it out. Well, not figure it out, just a waiting game to get the deck. And then, okay, so Kickstarter. So the way Kickstarter works is you set up the campaign, you can schedule it to go live at any time, and you can make the duration almost any time. I think the shortest is 7 days, maybe. And then it goes live. After they approve it, they do an initial check to make sure that it doesn't break any of their rules and isn't like inappropriate or anything like that. And then you get a little email saying, hey, it's approved. You can go live whenever you want. So it goes live, and then you get funded or not funded. People can leave comments. People can send you messages. You can update the posting at any time. The only thing you can't do is change the backing value. So like I had a tier that was $45 for one deck. Once I had, 100 people backing it, I couldn't go in and be like, just kidding, it's now 50. Nothing you can do about it. You can't. It won't let you. And honestly, there's no reason to. So a couple of things right off the bat that I learned is that people are 100% not shy about letting you know what they want, what they're looking for, what they expect, and they will ask you questions. And I appreciated that very much. And I got lots of questions about the Little White Book. Now we've hit, $14,000. Am I going to upgrade anything about the deck? Is the cardstock going to be nicer? Can they get it edged? What's happening? Like what? I just got lots of questions. Lots of printers sent me messages to ask, things and things like that. And then, so essentially, this is something I didn't realize, and they're not, I guess maybe it's super clear to other people, but it wasn't super clear to me. The funding goal includes the cost of the deck and the shipping. So, like, the $45 plus whatever the shipping was goes towards your funding goal. So you actually meet the goal much quicker than I expected to, because you're not just counting on that $45 or whatever the regular amount of the pledge is minus the shipping. So that's interesting and something to keep in mind. Kickstarter takes a percentage. I would be lying, and now I'm like incredibly ill prepared because I don't know the percentage off the top of my head. I want to say they take 20 cents, I believe, for every transaction. And they take a percentage of the shipping also. So that's also important to note. I will say the Kickstarter website is very much open and honest about all of their fees and everything. You can literally just search on their website, and there are like tons of creator like help and frequently asked questions and things like that. They also have a spreadsheet that will help you decide what you need your actual goal to be in order for you to be successful and also be able to actually fulfill all of the orders. So yeah, the deck got funded. If your deck gets funded, it takes 15 days for the money to be deposited into your account. It was like 15 days, like clockwork. So May 15th, I woke up to thousands of dollars in my account and like had halfway forgotten about it because like it had been 15 days and I was working on all the other parts and components, so I wasn't thinking about that. So that was an exciting day. You just like wake up and all of a sudden there's like a shit ton of money in your account that you didn't have the day before. Um, so a couple of things that are, I think, important to note as a backer and just sort of like in general. So I had a little poll, essentially. I had all the backers were able to vote on the edging color. It was between a blue and a pale pink. And the pink won by honestly not a ton. I think it was 115 votes for blue and 125 for pink. So like not that much. But pink won. I did have a couple of people that were angry about it, and they were very vocal about being very angry about it. And like ultimately, there was no sort of way for me to respond to it because I didn't pick the color. The backers picked the color. Like I didn't even vote. If I'm being honest, I initially wanted it to be blue. I am very glad that it's pink because now I've seen pictures of the edging from the printer and I have really compared the color, the shade of pink to the deck. And so I'm very happy with the pink. I think it's a great idea. But all that to say, I had nothing to do with picking it. Um, and I had a person reach out to me and they were not very nice. I don't want to go into it because I don't think it's worth it. The point is, they asked me for a refund, and I was like, initially kind of irritated and was kind of like, I don't know if I want to give you a refund. Like, you have been not very nice. Like, so the way refunds work on Kickstarter, and before I look like a total asshole, I did refund their money. It's fine. The point is, you're not guaranteed a refund. Like Kickstarter, once the pledges are collected, they are out of the picture completely. They don't deal with like issues, problems, anything like that. It's all through the creator at that point. If a refund is issued, then that person can't comment on Kickstarter on your campaign at all anymore. If you issue a partial refund, they can still comment on your page. Even though the Kickstarter campaign was over, the last thing I wanted was to deal with this person potentially becoming a troll and leaving negative comments on a campaign that will be there forever. I mean, you can always look through the Kickstarter archives and see it. So rather than cause, a big drama or make it a thing, I just refunded their money. It was up to my discretion, but I'm saying like, if a person doesn't want if a person ultimately decides they don't want the deck or they have negative feelings about the deck, I don't want them to have it anyway. So it worked out fine. So yeah, the money gets deposited and then Kickstarter is fully done and out of the picture. Here are a few things that I did so that I can, if I can, be diligent about getting the decks out when they're supposed to be out, because I don't want to be one of those deck creators who is like, people are always like, oh, well, Brant, took, an extra 3 months to get me the deck. Like, and rightfully so. Like you're expecting a product at a time that I picked. I chose the time for delivery. Like I could have said December. I could have said 2023 if I wanted to, but like I picked August, so I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the decks go out in August. So I ordered my supplies, my packing supplies. My spare room, which is the room right next to me, is like wall to wall, floor to ceiling, everything Moon Baby Tarot. There are over 500 boxes put together, ready to go. The spread cloths are tie-dyed and ready to go. I finished the last batch of them last week. I started writing thank you notes to put in the box because ultimately I feel like a little thank you is the least I can do because these people have been so nice and so kind and so, you know, supportive of my entire process. But also the idea of writing 600 thank you notes is daunting to anybody, even a person who loves to write. So I wanted to get all the components as ready as possible. So when the decks come, all I have to do is assemble the boxes, put the shipping label on, and send it out. Like I didn't want to have to be putting the box together, wrapping the, folding the cloth, doing this, doing that. I wanted it all ready to go. So yeah, that is my process. I have the chat open, and if anybody has any questions, I think now is a good time to take questions. I feel like I saw one. Yes, Eternal Cycles. Oh, Kate. Oh, okay, not a question, but yeah, you absolutely can have one. You can definitely have the one that they declined. I linked my Etsy in the description, and so you can, yeah, you can go there to buy it. Let's see. Orsi, I don't know. I'm not really sure about if I named them or didn't name them, or if I can name them, or if I'm just not supposed to, like, I don't know. It is, but I will tell you, it is the company that did the Neo Riders with the fun box. There were like 4 of them. It's that company. Let's see. Okay, copyright. No sense in avoiding it because it inevitably comes up every time. And I got lots of emails and questions about the copyright. Also, the copyright, as far as I could tell, I searched the copyright database and couldn't find a copyright for it. Because the deck came out in 1972, it likely wouldn't be included in the current copyright catalog because that didn't start until 1975. So it's possible that it was copyrighted but not included in the files. So you can pay to have the copyright registration office do a manual search themselves through their hard copies. And if the copyright is not there and it's available, then you can apply to get the copyright, which is what I have done. But at any rate, I don't think it would have been an issue anyway because the company who would have owned the copyright is bankrupt and out of business at this point. Kristen Louise asks if there is anything that I wish I would have done differently. And I'm going to say no. I don't think that there is. I'm very happy with the process. I'm very happy with the way that everything has sort of like fallen into place and works. And yeah, I'm very happy about it. Can you add a Pamela asks if they can add a cloth to their existing order. If you back to the Kickstarter campaign, it will come with a cloth automatically. Because that was one of the upgrades. Oh, another thing, not that I have another, I mean, while I'm waiting for more questions to come in, if I've missed a question, please just maybe retype it and use @moonbaby. That way I can see it, or put it in all capitals. But another aspect of the Kickstarter that I didn't um, really think about or expect is that I had companies or people who owned small businesses and tarot stores asking if I was going to have a wholesale tier, and I hadn't thought of that. I just didn't think about the idea of a store wanting to have it. So I added that in. And so that is exciting. There are 8 stores around the world that will have my deck for sale in them. I also wasn't prepared for where in the world the deck would go. They are going literally all over the place. New Zealand, Australia, Switzerland, Germany, the UK, Ireland, Canada, truly all over the place. Let's see if I've missed any questions. Wendy asked if I picked the shipping date before I made the Kickstarter, and yes, I did. There are a couple of questions about the reading cloths being in the Etsy or as an Etsy add-on, and yes, so there are almost 650 decks sold, or spoken for, that will have reading cloths, and I think I tie-dyed 700, so there should be 50 remaining still that I will have in the Etsy. And if it's not in the Etsy already, whenever you go, or if you go and you're in the future and you see this, just send me a message if I haven't added it in and you are interested, and we'll figure it out. I do still enjoy tie-dyeing. I so I ended up, okay, people are interested in seeing the cloths. Okay, I'm gonna have to go into another room to do it, and I'm gonna have to move quickly because we're running low on time. So I guess talk amongst yourselves, and I'll go and grab a few cloths. Okay, I'm back. So they're all different colors. Um, they're all colors from the deck, with the exception of this lavender that I just did because I love lavender. Um, so I don't know if you'll be able to see the weave, but they are really nice cotton. Trying to get to where I'm going, but at any rate, that is what they look like. Um, and I kind of accidentally got very much interested in Japanese tarot decks and sort of collecting them. And so I decided to tie-dye them in a shibori sort of style or technique. So basically, traditionally it would be done with indigo dye. So it would be like sort of denim, but essentially you sort of like origami style kind of fold them up. And so what I did was folded them into like a triangle essentially, and then tied on the corners like this, and then dyed them. Um, and I did them in batches by color, obviously. So there are roughly, I did them about 30 at a time, essentially. Um, so there are 30 that are this exact shade, and then there are another 30 that are a slightly different shade because I was mixing the dye as I went. Um, so yeah. Um, yeah, so that is that. Oh, I see Neem is asking about the shrimp and grits recipe that I will absolutely be including in your deck. So, um, okay, well, I still have a couple of minutes, but yeah, next we're going to go to Anna, Astral Lady Tarot. And she is going to be talking about creating a cohesive tarot system, I believe. Um, I may have kind of made up my own way of saying that, but thank y'all all very much for being here. I hope this has been helpful. If you are creating a deck or working on a deck, or have questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you're uncomfortable with that, you can find my email in my about section, I believe. Feel free to send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or help you in any way that I can. Um, yeah, so thanks everybody. And I will see you all at Anna Astral Lady Tarot, and you can find it right in the description box. And thanks again to Simon and Jen and Elle, who I know has been really working hard behind the scenes. And thank you to all the people who have presented before. Um, yeah, so this has been great. I'm very excited to see the rest of what is happening in Terrathon. So I'll see you over at Anna's channel, and have a good one.